Hello and welcome to the greatest show on earth. I know it's the greatest show on earth, particularly because it's barely even yet started, and I'm picking up on these vibrations, this feeling of greatness around me. And I would like to begin this episode by talking about someone who I found very interesting. Someone very, a figure, so to say, so notorious that I think they deserve to be talked about. And this story is very short, and it begins with me driving down to Miami, as I sometimes do, and stopping by my friend's parents' apartment. So my friend was already in my car, and just so for those of you around the world who are unacquainted with Miami, which I assume most of you are, because if you're listening to a podcast in English, then you already know English better than 90% of the people who live in Miami, who don't speak any English. If you're listening to this podcast, I will automatically assume that there's a high probability that you don't live in Miami. And if you do, you will have experienced this. So to fill you in on the context, you can't park anywhere in Miami. And this is a common thing, right? Like if you live in London, you're not going to be able to park anywhere in London. If you live in New York City, you're not going to be able to park anywhere in New York City. This is a given. This is not any sort of unique situation. But in Miami, in particular, there is a particular lack of space thanks to our beloved mayor, Francis Suarez, who has been accused of various corrupt practices. Uh, that may or may not have criminal connections behind them. And I am no man to judge, and you didn't hear it from me. But yes, so thanks to Francis Suarez and his lovely land reforms, there's nowhere to park in Miami. So most of the time, you might end up having to park somewhere near a hill or a park or in a place that's not even like a parking spot. So in this particular instance, I suggested that we park like, right by the road. And my friend's like, no. And I'm just like, why not? And he's just like, Jacob, this would be like your 20th or 30th parking ticket in Miami. And that's true. I have received around 20 to 30 parking tickets in Miami. In one particular instance, the international students at my high school were coming by for a visit and they took them to a Miami Heat game. And I was supposed to be a translator for the Polish students, as my name would suggest, because that is the language that I know. First of all, they accidentally put me with the Slovakian group because I told the lead coordinator that if they don't have a person for the Slovakian group, they can attach them to me because Polish and Slovak are pretty similar languages. To which the head coordinator at my former high school responded by cutting me off from the Polish group and putting me in the Slovak group because that's what she thought I wanted. And then I said, no, I actually still like to be with the Polish group. And so she says, oh, then we need to find someone else for the Slovak group. So she took the Chinese person out of the Chinese people group, the Chinese translator, and she put her in the Slovak group, which makes a lot of sense, actually. Like, instead of merging the groups, just put an Asian person to lead the Slovakians and translate things for them to Slovakian, which is a language from the other side of the world. So finishing that conversation about the upbeat professionalism of the place where I went to school, we're coming into the modern day now, many, many years later, where I didn't want to repeat an instance that particularly resulted from that Miami Heat game, in which I was late for the game where the international students were supposed to be, so they didn't even end up letting me in. But I parked on the side of the road away from the stadium because you cannot park in front of the stadium. And I was going to run directly towards the stadium so that I could get into the game in time, which, I didn't end up doing. So I come back to my car roughly 5 minutes later after running through Little Havana or wherever that stadium is. I don't even know if they have a specific stadium. Like, just because I've lived in this city in Miami, right, doesn't mean that I am going to know everything about the sports or the culture of that area. I don't care enough, right? So I come back to my car, and sure enough, there's a $250 parking ticket for a spot on the side of the road that nobody cares about in front of some random house that probably has drug dealers in it. No. Just you're gonna get a $250 ticket. On top of the fact that you're already late for the game, oh, wait, we weren't even supposed to invite you to that. Oh, silly us. Um, so that was a wonderful high school experience, just driving upwards to a stadium, not getting into the stadium, getting a parking ticket that, you now have to work a week to pay off, while at the same time having to deal with international students that up until halfway throughout their trip weren't even aware that you were going to be grouped with them. It was wonderful. One of the good things that came out of that situation was I did meet a guy who was reading the Revolt Against the Modern World by Julius Evola, and we got to talk about it from a very critical, pretentiously leftist, pretentiously postmodernist perspective, rather than from a trad, oh my God, yes, riding the tiger perspective. And if you know me, you know that I'm somewhat interested in philosophy. So that was a fun experience. I'm not going to complain too much about it. What I am going to complain about, though, is returning to our main topic, and you'll see me do this a lot. I will make word salad and I will segue between topics. And if you haven't been interested so far at this point, then just turn off the show. This isn't going to be the show for you. I'm going to go into random directions, but ultimately I'm going to come back to my point. This is just how I talk. After so many years of doing this, it's hard to rewrite it, right? So, coming back to my original point, what happened was that we were in this tight space where we didn't really have, a place to, so to say, park, right? Again a thing that happens a lot in Miami. You don't have a place to park. You get a parking ticket if you know, park on the side of the road. And my friend goes, "Well, maybe you shouldn't get your 30th parking ticket. Maybe we should park inside of the garage." And I ask him, "Where's the garage?" And he says, "I don't know." So we park on the side of the road. And by some miracle, we didn't get pulled over. But after meeting my friend's dad, he basically said, "Hey, Jacob, you should not park on the side of the road again because you'll get a ticket." And I go, "I know." And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I go, "Well, I've gotten them before." And he goes, "Okay." And I go, "Okay." And later after that, he said, "Well, my son should probably have told you that we have a parking lot right here in this apartment. And let me show you where it is." So he shows me where it is, and it's by a gate. And the next day, I'm supposed to meet his parents again because they made some food or something, and I was going to be still in the city regardless. So my friend's in my car again, and we have the same discussion. I go, "I should park on the side of the road." He says, "No, don't do that." And I say, "Then where do I park?" And he says, "I don't know." And then I'm like, "Oh, wait, no, your dad told me to park inside." And he goes like, "Yeah." So we come up to the little beeper thing, which you have to press, and you have to talk to the person who most likely doesn't speak English, who's going to let you into the apartment complex parking lot. And there's a guy behind us. And this guy drives a more expensive car than I do. And a minute passes after I press the beeper, and the person on the other end surprisingly speaks English, but they keep going, "Hold on, hold on, hold on." Like, they won't let us in. So I'm waiting for them to let us in because eventually they're going to have to, because the guy behind me is now so very close to my car because he keeps thinking that inching forward of just a little bit will eventually push me to push my car against the very clear thing that is blocking us from accessing the parking garage. So, I'm just waiting for this nightmare to go away. I'm looking in the rear view mirror where the guy keeps pulling in, and eventually he honks his horn, and this bald, really ugly guy with sunglasses screams, "Hey, what's the holdup? What's the holdup?" Um, and I just lean out the window and I'm like, "Yeah, they're not letting us in." And he throws his hands in the air as if it's my fault. Well, whatever. Around, I would say a minute later, or maybe 30 seconds to a minute later, maybe 45 seconds actually. I don't have a clock in my head. Maybe 45 seconds later, the gate lifts, the blockade lifts, they let us in. And now, just to illustrate, there's a little bit of like a left turn and a huge right turn to this garage. And as this was my first time in the garage, I didn't know that there was a huge right turn. And I didn't know that the right turn was made specifically for visitors. And my friend didn't know either because he doesn't really drive. So he's only been out and into this parking garage when other people have driven him. And my friend's dad didn't tell me this. So we pull into the left. Nobody says anything. My friend doesn't say anything because he doesn't know. I don't turn into the right because this is my first time in the garage. So I just go down where there are cars. And eventually I see a spot where there is no car. And the guy behind me, he's sort of slow. He's coming in. The blockade is being lifted a little bit faster now because the guy is already by his, little post where he's supposed to be letting people in all day. He's not like jerking off anymore. He's actually listening to who is coming in and who is coming out. So I pull in to the very end on the left side still, on the little left turn where there's an empty spot, and I pour. Why do I keep saying pour? I'm such a stupid Slav. Pull. 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 I pull in to the left side where there is an empty space. I pull in a little bit to the left, and I start parking there. And suddenly I hear this loud, obnoxious honk, like, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if the guy just like hit a kid or something. I don't think it's my problem though. Like maybe he's getting mad at the Indian who's being underpaid to man the little thing that's letting people in. I don't know. It could be any one of a million reasons. He might just like be really racist, and he saw an Asian person walking past, and he got really mad because some Asian kid beat him at ping pong 15 years ago and he can't let it go. There are so many explanations psychologically for why people may do the things that they do. But he pulls in. He doesn't really know, what's going on. I don't know what's going on, but he starts honking. And I don't know why he's honking. And then he speeds up. I mean just like pedal to the metal, goes from 0 miles per hour to like a million miles per hour. So he speeds up, he goes pedal to the metal. He suddenly, like, literal, you know, ender pearl teleports right behind me. So he's suddenly behind me. His expensive car is suddenly behind me to the path that is almost blocking my exit if I wanted to pull away. And he screams out of the front of his car. He screams, "That is my spot! You are in my spot! Get out! Get out of my spot! You are in where my car is supposed to be! What are you doing?" And you may notice that I'm doing a very squeamish, like, you know, uh, low sounding, low volume, very low pitched, almost like a dying. It's like a Harvey Weinstein croak. It's like it's like a dying little, breath, so to say. Um, Instead of a full-blown scream. And that is actually because I care about you. I care about you, the audience. I care about the things that you have to say and the things that you think. It's incredibly important to me, your thoughts, your comments, your perspectives. Therefore, I'm not going to scream into the microphone and blow your ears away because if you were to tap out of this episode, my existence would simply stop. It's not like I could keep on going with my life. It's not like I have a million other things to do. It's not like I have a social life of my own and things to get going and books to write and projects to make and work on. And no, I don't have any of that. I exist simply within the confines of this podcast episode. So I really don't want you to turn it off, which is why I'm not screaming anything. So it just comes down ultimately to that situation where I'm looking back at the guy and I'm looking at my friend and I'm looking back at the guy again with like a little bit of a little bit of a this is a true story by the way a little bit of contempt, and I'm just like, could you imagine? I look at my friend before I even steer away because by this point we're both sort of scared, and I just say to him, just looking in my rearview mirror at this like steroid-ridden, former skinhead who somehow managed to get a expensive car and is now very upset about his parking space. I look at my friend and I go, could you imagine being mad? Could you imagine being this mad about anything, literally ever? Could you imagine getting this mad about anything? Anything at all? How is it even humanly possible to be this upset over something so slight, over something that makes so little of a difference? Parking spot. So, a dialogue tree opens up in my head and I can say numerous things. Number one, I could say, park literally anywhere else. I can scream that. I will probably get my head kicked in. I could say number two, sorry, I didn't mean to get in your spot. Well, he'll probably also kick my head in. Or I can say number three, nothing. Raise my window blinds and honk for 5 seconds straight while pulling in reverse and throwing on my turn signal to show that I want to get out until the guy screams a bunch of expletives, reverses, and lets me back out of the spot so that he can come into it, and then drive all the way up to the top floor of the parking garage before I even notice that there is a whole visitor parking section. So, guess which option I chose? So ultimately, I chose option three, right? I did the weird non-verbal motion thing for the guy to get out of quote unquote his spot. This is like the people at church that think that just because they sit somewhere, it has their name on it, which, a little bit of a clue. No, it doesn't. Um, Letting the guy sit in his spot and supposedly skedaddling away so that he may take his rightful place. And that's what I did. I threw on the turn signal, I did a little nonverbal thing as if I was a blind or a deaf person, and I lived through that experience, and I've been reflecting on it sometimes. I say that as if it has come to my mind at all ever since. It really hasn't. This is my first time talking about it. I just needed a fun story to start off with, rather than introducing myself. So for those of you who are unacquainted, my name's Jakub Rucinski. I'm an author. I'm many other things, actually. But whenever I want to introduce myself, I mostly just say I'm an author because there are dialogue trees for every single encounter in this life. And though dialogue tree, when you say that you're an author, is perhaps the most interesting because you say you're an author. And they say, oh, you write books? And I say, yeah. And they're like, oh, how many books have you written? And I'm like, two. They're like, oh, but you look so young. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, what do you write about? And I say, I write mostly thrillers or mysteries. And they say, oh, that's so cool. I've always wanted to write a book. And I say, maybe someday you will. And they never do. So that's a really fun dialogue tree because it instantly raises the other person's opinion of you. It's like in The Sims. It's like throwing another Sim a compliment. They like you. They like you a little bit more. It's like finding someone in a foreign country and speaking the same language to them. Finding another American in China and speaking, American to them.